Alright, welcome back to Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Lesson Known Classics. This is episode number 32, 65, and Doubleshot 3159. Got two library collections from I.D.W. First up we have is Star Trek Library Collection, Volume 1. This contains 3 Star Trek miniseries. Star Trek Countdown, which is a prologue into the Star Trek 2000 movie, which I had previously reviewed. Star Trek Spock, and Star Trek Nero. Spock. Let's look at this one first. Now, Spock, of course, each of these books give rares. Now, this book is so good. It's called Spock Reflections. It is written by Scott and David Tipton. Good choice. Artwork, David Messina. Nero is done by Roberta Orsi, Alex Kurtzman. That's the story. The script is Mike Johnson and Tim Jones. I'll talk more about that one later because the story for Star Trek Nero is interesting. But in the case of Spock, it just goes back and forth. Let's go in chronological order for this thing. Well, in the future, basically, he's on a spaceship going to someplace. So, the earliest chronological story we have in this miniseries is basically Spock relieving his home, running away to the mountains, which was mentioned on the episode Unification Part 1. So good on basically Tipton's remembering that particular scene. There is another scene in the book where you have Spock going to Enterprise B not long after the events of the prologue of Star Trek Genesis, where the captain of Enterprise B, Captain Hiram, had basically put a plaque in the very area where Kirk died in 2293. Interesting, basically, that is a particular year that the prologue takes place, because I believe that was also the year the movie was released. Well, basically, like, in 1993. They occasionally do that. Though in the case of the main movie itself, I think, if I remember correctly, I believe that the movie took place in, I think it was like 2371, I think it was. Yeah, 2371. So then afterward, we see him go to Veridian 3. We see the famous platforms that were basically in the movie. And he walks to the very location where Kirk was buried on Veridian 3. And then we see later on where he apparently teleported the thing to Earth and put the body inside of the grave marked for James T. Kirk. And there's Captain Picard at the grave. He's like, oh, you brought the body with you. And by the way, Picard in this scene here is wearing the uniform that debuted in First Contact, which was really good on them for doing that. And it is basically Spock reflecting on stuff, which the miniseries is really good. Like, good writing, good artwork, just purely fantastic. Nero. This miniseries is based upon the lead scenes from 2009 movie. Yes, for some reason these scenes were cut, because if you watch the movie itself, it's like right after the destruction of the USS Kelvin, and then when we see him later on, it seems like, what the heck these people do for 25 years? What do they do, sit on their hand 25 years? This miniseries reveals exactly what happened, based on scenes that were cut. So, Nero was captured by General Core. This is, of course, the Caroline Tomlin version of the character. Yes, I appreciate the fact that Mike Johnson, or Tim Jones, who did this, remembering this character existed, because in the Prime timeline, of course, people know is the main timeline from the original series up until Voyager, which also includes Picard, along with, I think, Lord Dex is in his continuity, and I believe Prodigy is as well. Because Core, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think he was the very first Klingon ever seen on screen in the episode Errand of Mercy. Yeah, I think it was Core. Yes. So he captures Nero and his crew, and basically have a trial for apparently trespassing Klingon territory, and then they send to Urpente, the very prison that Kirk was sent to in the primetime line in Star Trek 6. Yes, he's there for a while, apparently making multiple escape attempts, killing some guards. But apparently mining there is really good because Nero's a miner. A very angry miner, mind you. Eventually he escapes, and then he just happens to... We actually get to the scene in the miniseries because I appreciate the fact that they cut the scene out because it would not be... It would spoil... If they kept this whole thing in the movie, it would have spoiled the reveal of basically Leonard Nimoy two more times playing Spock. Though this is more Ambassador Spock, where he's arriving in the past and he's captured. We actually get a little bit as a flashback in the movie where he's captured by Nero after basically arriving about 25 years after he did. Everything would take a ship and drop up in Delta Vega, and that's where the miniseries leaves off. Two really good miniseries. I at least gotta admit, I think in the case of the story, I think it's based on the story they wrote, but the script was done by Mike Johnson, who had been the main writer of the Star Trek book that came out not long after this miniseries was included. An ongoing series for Star Trek that basically, I think for the first 24 issues, it basically, for the comic-wise, filled the gap between 2009 and Into Darkness, and then the rest of the book took place between Into Darkness and beyond. So I'm going to give this both this book here a 10 out of 10. This book is really good. Next up we have is Godzilla, I.D.W. Collection, Volume 2. Well, Library Collection, Volume 2. Excuse me. Unlike the previous trade, which contained 3 miniseries, this contains a single series. Yes, here's the cover for the I.D.W. Collection for this one. This contains a series that Linkara has been reviewing on his YouTube on his series Atop the Fourth Wall, Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters. This contains all 12 issues of the series, written by Eric Powell, Tracy Marsh, and Jason Karima. First 4 issues are by Phil Hester. Victor Santos does 5 through 12. Now, this particular series has weird stuff with it. Obviously Barack Obama, though he's not referred to as Barack Obama, even though clearly when you see the guy, he referred to him as President Octon for some reason. And of course, another typical monster attack, and kids are at the shore. Godzilla shows up and supposedly kill the kids, the fisherman. There's also an army sergeant basically is running with just doesn't like monsters, and yeah, and throughout this book, eventually we do see people I think it's Rodan and Giris. Now you look at this guy, that's clearly Barack Obama. Clearly by looking at this guy, that was President Barack Obama. But for some reason they refer to him as Octon. I do not know the reason for it. I kind of agree with Linkara on this one. We'll give you his opinion probably, is that they're afraid that the real life Barack Obama will not like the fact he's featured in the comic book, despite the fact that he's featured in Spider-Man and bunch of DC comics. I think he would be perfectly fine with it. The first issue is just him. There's also up here with basically Black Mothra. Eventually, halfway through the series, they bring in Mechagodzilla, introduced by President Octon, which, of course, the version you use here is clearly the Showa era Mechagodzilla. And look, here's Anguirus. Yep, here he is. Eventually, they throw in King Ghidorah, and this here is in Russia. Yeah, this is Rodan. Yep. And then they have build a wall to keep. Yes, this is obviously. This is the writers of the book poking fun of the wall between the U.S. Mexican border, which, by the way, I've seen footage of what this wall looks like, and it looks nothing like this at all. It is made of metal, but not this type of metal. Yeah, blocks out basically the. You have Godzilla, and eventually, you have Billions of Monsters here. And then we see, I don't know which monster this one is. Looks like a giant grasshopper. I don't know who that is. We see Godzilla rampage about. We see an egg, and we see Lady Dada, which is a parody of Lady Gaga. And her whole thing is like, oh, protect the kaiju. Eventually, she's found dead when she's crushed by a building. Later on. Yes. I'm not sure how Lady Gaga herself felt being parodied in a Godzilla comic. And then her being crushed by a monster. Then she puts on this ridiculous bug costume and... oh yeah, it's Batra. Yep, Batra. Who is Batra? Batra was introduced in the Heisei Godzilla movie Mothra vs. Godzilla. And he is just... look, here's the twins. Yep, the famous twins who are associated with Mothra. Yep. You've seen Batra where he basically nearly crushes the Eiffel Tower. There's also the two girls basically like they're queens. And then we finally have a monster fight here between Godzilla and Anguirus. Yes. Now, if you're really curious, like, here's Rodan. Clearly, I at least compared to against Rodan. And here is basically how she's depicted dead. It's like we see a leg, and they assume it's her, but they never confirm it. Oh yeah, and then the thing is like crushing the Eiffel Tower. You think, okay, we have a new monster up here? Oh, we will. And then we have Kumonga. Yes, Kumonga. Who I think debuted in... I think it was Godzilla's Revenge. I think it's when he first showed up here. And then here is basically like his blueprints for Mechagodzilla. And look, he's passing by Mount Rushmore, which clearly he possibly wrecks the damn thing. Now, I actually thought this was making what was based upon the Showa era. This more looked like it's a mixture of Showa and Heisei era Mechagodzilla. Yeah. And then here's King Ghidorah. Yep, King Ghidorah. Who's here with... oh yeah, he's got 3 heads like usual. Yes, the typical enemy of Godzilla. With 3 heads. Yep, any more bad guys put up here? Well, that's pretty much it when it comes to monsters I know of. I think they practically threw in like every single one. You're thinking, are they missing one? Oh, Megaguirus. Yep, he's here. In his second appearance, he actually was updated with Buzzsaw. Close up of this Mechagodzilla, he kind of looks like Showa. Well, it was made by the aliens in Planet Z, except this is a human-based one. And then you have Under DC, which is clearly supposed to be a bunker underneath the White House. I don't remember the name of it per se. I think it was Situation Room. Yeah, Situation Room. For some reason, it called Situation Room. It all says Under Watch DC. Yeah. Yeah, and here's Ghidorah. He appeared in 2 movies. He appeared in his own Southern movie, and he made a brief cameo in Final Wars. Surprisingly, Legendary hasn't touched this guy yet. Nope. Like, first time it's a bit slow, but then we can finally get the monster fight here, and that's it. Overall, really good book. I think there's one more in here for this one. Star Trek can still cut more for this one, but yeah, I give the Godzilla one roughly a 9 out of 10. Yep. So yeah, that's particular view. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, to notifications. Excuse me. Next up, the Unaware Altair Meister. Get these film. Bye.